Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm taking a look at the Princess Leia Hoth figure from Hot Toys. Let's see how she turned out. Okay, first up, you guessed it, it's the packaging, and it's, again, standard fare for Hot Toys Sideshow Star Wars. Just your awesome gray-black lines with some pretty solid photography on the front, as well as all the credits on the back of the shoebox. Again, nothing remarkable here, but that's kind of by design. Everybody does it the same way just for the uniformity, and it is an attractive form of uniformity. I continue to dig it just as much as I always have. Now, getting into the guts of the figure, which is what we're pretty much all about, it comes with so much great stuff. You've got a nice array. There's the arc welder from the Millennium Falcon scene, as well as the goggles that she's using and or holding in her hands. You've got a breath mask for when they go outside of the Falcon on the asteroid, and this pistol is the pièce de résistance. It's acknowledged to be representative of the early production photos. The press photos that came out beforehand. This costume, though, is what really gets me. The fine details on it are pretty incredible. It scales down really well. There's a base that comes with it that's got all sorts of nice snow on it. I'm really digging it. Let's see what we can do with all this stuff. Full disclosure, this is not the first time I've laid eyes and or hands on a Princess Leia Hoth figure from Hot Toys. We also did a How to Be a Poser video over at the Sideshow YouTube channel. If you want some finer details, then check it out there. Now, looking at the costume, you'll notice here that I'm doing a little bit of finessing. There are quite a few little tiny microfibers that are emerging from the seams of the costume. I remember that happened with the previous version of the figure that I had in my hand, so you might want to address that in order to have your figure look at its finest. Full disclosure though, if you just yank them out like I do there, it kind of tends to pull out more fibers, so I would recommend finding some way to shave them off. I didn't bother for the purpose of this video. I'll figure out another way to do it later. Maybe do another video on that when the time comes. Alright, now as I always like to do when I get a new figure, I kind of tend to start with a more modest pose and then work my way up in terms of complexity. This accomplishes two things. It gets a nice variety of poses as I play with the figure. Additionally, it also helps me to test the limits of the figure itself. So if I'm basically in short, if I'm going to break something, I want it to be after I've done other things with it. Alright, now you'll notice here that I'm playing with the hands, and what you can't see me doing is that I'm removing the wrist pegs from the hands. They didn't stay in the arm when I tried to pull the hands off. This is a pretty common thing. It's ubiquitous to 6-scale figures. You never really know if the grip is going to be enough to maintain the pegs themselves within the hands, or if they're going to come out necessitating you're actually having to remove them from the hands manually. This is just part of the process. It can be a pain at times. Other times it's relatively easy, just like it is here with me. I didn't have any issues with this. The pegs are tight enough to maintain their grip and stay where they're supposed to, but not so tight that it becomes an issue when you're trying to change the pegs from hand to hand. As you can see there, I've done it pretty swiftly. Everything's ready to go. At this point, I have a clear idea of what I'm after with this pose. I'm just going to try to get her holding a couple of the accessories that she comes with. Namely, I'm going to have her with the arc welder and with the goggles, reminiscent of that scene in the Falcon, right as they're making their repairs and right before she and Han have their first intimate moment. Once I have both of these accessories in their respective hands, then I can start working on Leia's posture. For this pose, I'm going to be I'm kind of going to be inspired by some classic movie posters, 50s sci-fi movie posters, femme fatales that appear in that sort of a genre back in the day. Also, pulp sci-fi novels from the 70s and 80s that I used to devour when I was younger. The artwork on the covers of those influenced me a lot in what I do today. Now pay attention to what I'm doing here. Once I get the goggles in Leia's hand, I'm going to bring them up to her face. The reason I'm doing this is because while I'm going to have the goggles resting at her side, I want to make sure that they're being held in her hand in such a way that she would naturally have them in that position when she's bringing them up to her face. The reason for this, I don't know, is I guess because it implies an action that has just happened or that is about to happen one way or the other. If you're about to bring a set of goggles up to your face, or just move any sort of a tool into a position in which you're going to be using it for its specifically designed purpose, you're not going to be holding those goggles or whatever other tool it is in a way other than that which enables you to most effectively use it in the way that it's for which it was designed. The other issue I ran into here was, where should I place this little package, this little arc welder here? And as you can see, I just kind of put it behind Leia and stuck it between the two pegs of the groin grabber support stand. I'm not sure exactly where she had it in the film. I actually went back and looked at the film and didn't see, I couldn't tell where it was. So that seems like a pretty effective way of handling that issue. If you think of any other reason, or any other way rather, that we can effectively hide that or implement its use, then please feel free to comment below. Let me know what you did with it, because I am curious. I want to see if there's a way that we can just use that thing, place it somewhere that makes it look natural and just doesn't have it dangling down at her side. Okay, now what I'm doing is just trying to hit a decent posture here with Leia. I don't want her just standing there, so I'm going to just give her a very Carrie Fisher-esque tilt to the head, and now it's time, I think, to mess with the hips. I want to get those hips in a way that just suggests cocky, not even necessarily cocky, but confident femininity. This is very important when you're trying to portray Carrie Fisher's portrayal of Princess Leia, so to speak. Portraying a portrayal, there you go. Reason for that is that Carrie Fisher was a tiny person. She wasn't much taller than 5 feet, and yet she managed to carry herself and convey Princess Leia. Oh, look, I forgot to remove that. Make sure that you get that thing off of the neck, otherwise it looks like she's wearing a turtleneck, and that's just not the way she looked in the film. Anyway, back to my point, which is Carrie Fisher. She's a tiny person, but yet she managed to convey herself in such a way that she seemed to be much larger than life, if you will. And that was instrumental in her portraying Princess Leia as such a strong female character at a time when there just weren't that many strong female characters to that degree in popular culture. At this point, I think I mostly have the posture that I'm looking for here. You might want to provide another look to your figure. If that's the case, then I suggest going in and watching closely her body language as Carrie Fisher is portraying Princess Leia. If you can capture that, then it goes a long way to making your figure look more realistic, even in a more static pose, a static museum pose such as this one that I'm implementing here. At this point, the pose is just about wrapped. I think I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Just a couple final, just a little slight adjustments to this vest. By the way, important to note that if you remove that vest and add to the figure the head that's going to come with the Bespin Leia figure that's about to be released from Hot Toys, then you have the carbon freezing chamber Leia that you might be hoping for. Brilliant, not so subtle marketing strategy on the part of Hot Toys. Overall, I'm so impressed with this figure. A little quick story, this was an impulse buy. I happened to be up at a Comic-Con in Durham, North Carolina, and a guy had a great deal on it, and I could not pass it up. I needed it for my collection anyway. I have a nice shelf full of Hoth-related figures that she complements quite nicely. I think what I like most about this portrayal of Leia is that we see her step outside of the trappings of a princess. We've already seen her commanding presence even while she was wearing the gown with the buns for the hairdo. But seeing her here in a military-esque uniform in that environment really shows us a lot more about her qualities, and it also contributes greatly to visions of that we see of her in subsequent films as well as in the Rebels TV show. That's about it. Had a great time shooting this. Let me know what you think of the figure if you have it or if you plan on getting it. Until next time, be good to your plastic. Hey, check you out. You made it to the end and everything. If you like what you saw, feel free to click my face over there on the right and you'll be subscribed to my channel. If you're really hardcore, go to the page itself and click that notification bell. You'll know right away as soon as something else drops. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, be good to your plastic.